Welcome to the Stone World Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Camry, and with me today is Mike Schlough, the co-president and owner of Park Industries, as well as Tony Herbst, the director of sales. Gentlemen, thank you both for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So first, Mike, let's start with you. If you don't mind, just kind of talking a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business.
Well, I've been around the business my entire life, but I never really had aspirations of being in the business until I got my feet on the ground and got my career off moving. So I worked for a Fortune 100 out of school until I realized that I didn't really like the huge company environment. Mm-hmm. So I came to work at Park Industries almost 15 years ago, just kind of to see what it would be like and figure out what I wanted to do with myself professionally. And I think it's working fine because I have no plans of leaving. It's fun. I enjoy the industry, and I really enjoy working with customers that are making their own living. It's a lot different than the big corporate world.
Awesome. And what about you, Tony?
Yeah, so I've been at Park for over 5 years now, so it's gone very fast. I've always been around industrial or manufacturing in some sorts since college, and a lot of it similarities became in the precision machining or the chip making world is where I kind of cut my teeth on the machine tool side. And Mike and I kind of connected through our individual networks, and here we sit today. So it's been a great ride and an exciting industry.
All right, awesome. So the first thing we kind of got to talk about is obviously, coronavirus, COVID-19 is, it's still going through the country. It's hitting some areas now that weren't being hit before. Others are starting to open up. So really, how has Park Industries adjusted during this entire period? What have you done through the process?
Well, the first thing we did is create an internal task force to figure out what this situation entails. And we came up with our 3 priorities. First, taking care of our associates and the health of them and their families, followed by making sure that we're doing everything we can to support our customers, and finally, the long-term viability of the organization. So around that, we moved very quickly to move people into a remote work environment so they could keep doing what they do in a safer environment. And quite frankly, it went very smooth. It took a lot of work up front, but getting people out of the building to the extent that they can. And our kind of operating rule is we're going to do everything that we can to perform meaningful work to serve our customers.
So moving forward, talking about the forecast in the industry and how the future is looking, we're still kind of dealing with everything, but how does it look from your guys' perspective?
We think the long-term outlook for this industry and our customers is quite positive for several reasons. One is we'll use the phrase high performance countertops, which, they're durable, they're attractive, and all those things. It used to be, it was granite and other natural stone. Then it became stone and quartz came on the scene. Now we've got other man-made materials. So if you group all those together and call them high-performing countertops, the outlook for them is very positive on a percentage basis, growing against the traditional competitive solutions in that space. And also new construction needs to continue to grow, and remodeling the same, because the phenomena of new, nice, and affordable is even more challenging. So, at some point it's going to get fixed up, whether it be before the sale or soon thereafter. And people, even though we've gone from McMansions to smaller spaces, the kitchen and the bath is still something that people are investing in.
Yeah, well put, Mike. And in addition to that, we've seen just in my 5 years here, the the caliber of the fabricator, our customers and beyond, has really skyrocketed. There are some smart business people, and we start talking to more and more of them every day. So whether it's moving into digital or whatever it may be, the class of the fabricator is just really taking off.
Tony, I'm really happy you kind of brought up the digital aspect of it, because it seems like when we sit on these different seminars and these different talks, with what's going on during COVID, there seems to be a big push to moving businesses more digitally, right? Either it's machines or different services such as sales. So from your perspective, why is it so important for fabricators to switch to digital?
Well, it's always important, but specifically in a COVID era, I guess we'll call it that, is labor becomes even more of a challenge. And as people start resetting what their business outlooks are and how do they want to be post-COVID, looking internally at your labor force, who do you want to bring back, or who do you need, and how reliant do you want to be on individuals versus machines? So all of that feeds into whether you make the move or enhance your digital platform at your shops.
Another element of this normal that we're going to all have to get used to is, how much can I do remote? So if I'm a fabricator and I want to get my end consumer interested in moving forward, maybe there is an in-person element to the scope of the ultimate transaction, but how much of this stuff can we do remotely? And that is all ones and zeros. It's all digital. So you got to have the information to be able to enable that remote investigation about how I want to build a new home or how I want to remodel my existing space.
So now I'm sure, you guys are talking to fabricators nonstop, or visiting shops or whatever else. So what are some of the strategies and best practices that you've seen from fabricators during this time?
Sure. So for example, even, our fabricators have sales forces. They're calling on end users or homeowners. And some of these homeowners aren't as apt as they used to be to come into a shop or do a showroom and look at inventory. Under a digital setup, you can do that remotely. You can show a homeowner, here's what we have for inventory. Here's what your kitchen may look like laid out on a digital platform. So that's one piece we've seen, is really relying on the technology you have in your shop. Or if you don't have it currently, it's a rather inexpensive way to invest to get to that. So that's one thing we've seen. And another one is really getting involved. Some of the best fabricators that I've noticed over the last 2 months have really gotten involved in whether they're local associations, the national ones. We all know there's many of them out there. Get involved, network, and share best practices. So that's one observation I've had.
Yeah, I would say to follow what Tony's talking about, networking, to have the courage to ask others for help. It's fun to watch, because there's always a varying spectrum of experience or wisdom around what they did and it didn't work, or what they did and they'd never go back. And Tony and I were part of a call just a few weeks ago with a handful of pretty significant fabricators, non-compete. They were in different parts of the country, but some of the, must-dos for a couple of the fabricators it was new information for the other, and vice versa. So even though some of these fabricators have been around, they're large, you'd think they have it all figured out. They'll admit the more people they can talk to, the better.
Right.
Awesome. So, from that call and other, conversations you've had, what are some of the things fabricators should do to begin to recover and get back to normal as businesses start to open?
Well, I would say the first thing is to figure out how they can use their selling process with the distancing expectations of their particular market. You know, how do you keep the sales machine going? We learned through this COVID situation that some parts of the country, people said, you know what, I don't want any visitors outside of my organization. I don't want suppliers. I don't want salespeople, because everybody's healthy and we're busy, and that's great. So taking the time to think about what will be embraced as, how will my business's behavior be embraced in my local market moving forward, to make sure that you're doing the things that make others, I don't want to say feel comfortable, but not feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Jason, I had the opportunity to be part of a speaker or session here a week ago, and the speaker was phenomenal. And one thing that they recommended is, as all of us come out of COVID, is how are you going to reinvent yourself? And the key is, this is an opportunity. I know these are historic times, these are historic challenges, but how are you going to reinvent your organization so you come out, bigger, better, stronger? And some of that is just through the metrics, this is an opportunity, if things start to ramp up, and maybe look hard at your business. Where are your costs going? Is there anything you can do to adjust and be stronger coming out? And as cliche as it sounds, but it is, how are you going to reinvent yourself coming out of COVID?
That's a very good point. And it is interesting, as you talk to more and more fabricators, you get different perspectives of either what they learned that they need to change, or they learned, some serious positives of their business, and, parts they didn't think that they were that good at or that were that important are now key aspects of their business. So it's really cool to hear. One of the things I kind of want to pivot to a little bit is, talking about cutting different materials. A lot before all this started, but even during it, a lot of people were talked about porcelain or sintered materials or whatever else is out there. They were becoming bigger and bigger items for fabricators to cut, make money off of, but they also came with more issues. So really, I kind of want to ask from your guys' perspective, is this something that you believe that fabricators should embrace? And also, if they decide to embrace it, how do they start dealing with all the challenges with these materials?
About 15 years ago or more, there was this new thing that was really challenging to cut, and it's called quartz. And it's the most popular material that people cut in the high-performing countertops segment. So how did we get through that? Because in the beginning, we were challenged as well. So it's about finding the experts, getting trained, knowing that the experts are learning more, hopefully ahead of others, so that can be shared. Mm-hmm. The tooling people, the material manufacturers, people that make the equipment that ultimately is required to cut the material. Because if it's in vogue with the design community and you see it in the magazines, it's going to be here, and it's up to the fabricators and the material providers to figure out, okay, that looks cool, now how do I make it? Mm-hmm. But all of the challenges that have come up in the past eventually are solved, whether it be changing the recipe of the slab or the recipe of the diamond segments. It's going to be here to stay, and people need to embrace that learning curve.
And I would say, Mike, to that point, is the quicker you can embrace it, there's the opportunity to have it be a highly profitable segment of your business. If you're out there ahead of the pack per se. So that's a big deal. And to Mike's point, it's coming either way. So with the tooling and the machine tools out there and the knowledge in the industry, it is something to definitely tackle. As far as how do you start dealing with these materials, one thing that we've noticed just in the last probably 12 to 18 months is the amount of training and certifications that are available for porcelain and sintered materials. And even at Park, we were set up right before COVID hit to have certifications at Park through some of the suppliers. That is still going to happen, but it got postponed a little bit. But just one easy way to do it is go to your slab supplier of these materials, and many of them have certifications, and it's a great way to get started.
Fantastic. So kind of going along with that, one of the things I really wanted to pick your brains about is really the future of routers and just edge profiling in general. Because I'll talk to a lot of fabricators and say, all I do is, a flat edge or just miters all the time. The OG, double OG, whatever else was out there, they're all dead. We're not doing them anymore. But then I'll speak to other fabricators where all they're doing is, more and more edge profiles and not really the miters. So what are you all seeing? What are the trends that are coming through right now?
Well, the trends in the design community are the lighter colors that we've all seen, more simplified edges, newer materials. So the question is, well, what is the future of routers? Routers are an essential element to the core of countertop fabrication. And as the styles of the shape tools or the styles of the edges change, the router still has a strong place in terms of maximizing the output of the shop relative to the input costs, meaning the two largest costs in a shop are raw material and people. And while you can do eased edges, pencil rounds, depending on what you call it, by hand, the router still has a place in terms of overall efficiency, no matter what style of tooling you're using. And the tooling might not be there to everybody's liking for the newest materials, but just like we saw with quartz, everything's going to get to where we need it to be, and there'll be more and more automation through programmable sawing and edging machines.
Well stated, Mike. And Jason, to that point, the routers, just some of the tooling has really picked up recently, and with the high flow, high water features that you can add on to routers, the production is really ramped up, the throughput rates, I should say. So it's an exciting time. Routers will be here, and they will ebb and flow, but they are a workhorse.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that was fabricators were kind of talking about before the pandemic hit, was obviously there's a skilled labor shortage in the industry right now. And the idea of going semi-automated or fully automated kind of kept creeping up now and again. Now it seems like during the pandemic, that idea is, being brought up even more by other fabricators who thought they would never go that route. So from your perspective, what do you think is the future of full automation and fully automated shops?
I think it's going to go in steps for a couple of reasons. One is to go to a complete automated production facility is very expensive. I mean, you can go get financed, but it's a lot of money. And it's also a higher level of risk if the system is integrated, meaning if I'm a high volume shop and I've got 8 different machines running independently, if I have a problem with one of the machines or a hiccup, it doesn't take my shop down. But if everything is reliant on something else, not that we've experienced that situation where the customer's been just flat out of business for a period of time. There's a lot of fear out there that a completely linked system has that potential. So what I think and what we tend to think is it's going to come in bits, and then over time the bits are going to come together and be more cohesive. But ultimately it's a push towards less labor because people don't want to do it. It's too expensive, the availability of labor. I mean, we've seen that, throughout history, really. I mean, when the first farm planter was invented in the 1700s, that completely revolutionized the output compared to the input.
Yeah, and I agree, Mike, that's well stated. Is if you look at our cousin industry where I came from on the metals, the machining side, is they did not go to lights out automation. They are out there now, but it did not happen overnight. And it is a journey, and it is step by step. a proven path. So I do see that happening in the industry as well.
All right, awesome. So I have one last question for you guys. I know probably most people out there know, who Park Industries is, but if you don't mind just talking a little bit about your guys' history and your commitment to the industry, because maybe fabricators don't know that side of you all.
Well, I can start on that one. We've been around since 1953. My grandfather started the company out of very humble beginnings, essentially trying to figure out how to feed his family with the knowledge he had, which was he had some concrete block knowledge, and he was in the lumber milling industry and some custom farming in central Wisconsin. So he just started building machines that would split a concrete block product that he made. So it looked like natural stone wall veneer. And then these little manual splitters that were sold to masons got bigger and bigger, and they went to quarries. And then we got into block saws with diamond technology when the Europeans were starting to come over to the US with that. So our first diamond block saw was in 1979. And then we did get into CNC too early with routers. When I say too early, it was before Windows. So it was very challenging even for people with machinist level education. But then the Windows world came around, and then the quarrying techniques that were used historically made it fairly expensive to have a granite countertop. But when that whole process changed and the fabrication got closer and closer to the quarries, then granite countertops became affordable for a lot more people. And then our business shifted and became heavily tied to the countertop industry. So right now, we're focused on serving our customers primarily in the countertop fabrication world. We also make machines that are in the plasma thermal cutting for steel. And we still do make the splitting machines and some other non-countertop, we call it architectural. But if we go back to that point in time where 1979 and the years thereafter, we were basically starting from ground zero, competing with, at the time, mostly the Europeans. So our philosophy was, if we're ever going to crack into this world of more automated equipment, we have to have excellent service, because everybody knows one day or another the machine's going to go down. We've got large fabrication capabilities in metal, and we know what that's like. So we kind of put our stake in the ground and said service comes first, and we've never strayed from that. So we're absolutely obsessed with immediate customer service. So that's what Park is all about. So back in '79, maybe the machines weren't that great, but we felt the service was better than the competition. And at this point in time, we feel like we're very competitive both on the service side and the equipment.
And to that point, as far as how Park is perceived now in the industry, it is with high expectations. As I joined Park, and it's like I said, 5 years later, it is still, as you get out and travel around, is a lot of it's positive, but we run into customers that have extremely high expectations of Park Industries, and it's kind of a badge of honor. And we hold that closely to the point where we like to be considered and be focused as trusted advisors in the industry. And it's really what's our mantra every day. So our sales team is out. We want to make sure we're helping advise customers. Sometimes it may end up being a Park machine that they invest in. Sometimes it may be an adjustment in their process or their shop flow. But trusted advisor is kind of how we've put our spot on the market right now.
Jason, one last little plug. This is going to sound corny, but it's the truth. We are not in business to sell you a machine. We are in business to help you make more money. And as Tony alluded to, there have been instances where step one in improving business for a customer is changing the leadership in their shop or changing some other operational element that has nothing to do with capital equipment. Because I never want to be in a situation where somebody could come up to me and say, hey, Mike, I spent a lot of money on a new piece of equipment and I am not more profitable. That is the conversation that would really disappoint me. And in the 15 years of being at Park, I honestly can say there were one or two situations where maybe buying a particular piece of equipment wasn't the best idea. Maybe it was too soon. So they weren't necessarily making more money. They weren't losing money. But so we're very focused on making sure that when this relationship advances forward, that the customer's in a better place.
All right, great. Well, Mike, Tony, thank you both for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
It was fun. Thank you.